and how you want them. And a shopper will safely deliver them contact-free in as fast as 2 hours. Because between
Okay.
teaching, cooking, and parenting, you could use one less job today.
Well,
Go
I
to
don't know.
Instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first order using the code ORDER today. You care for your kids. Now multi-care for them with new Vicks Botanicals drug-free syrup. It soothes cough, nasal irritation, and helps
Sure.
clean mucus. New Children's Botanicals Multicare from Vicks.
Vicks Children's was built with the good stuff kids need for cold relief. And is free of some artificial stuff they don't. Dump the additives, keep the relief. With Vicks
Really?
Children's.
Really? Ay.
President Trump spent time on the campaign trail on Thursday. Meanwhile, lawmakers back in Washington continue to react to his refusal to commit to a peaceful transfer of power. Deborah Alfarone has the latest on the campaign trail.
President Trump hits the battleground states of North Carolina and Florida Thursday.
We'll be talking about
Okay.
healthcare. We have a lot of good things happening with respect to healthcare.
The White House is dealing with fallout after President Trump refused to commit to a peaceful transition of power if he loses the November 3rd election.
We want to make sure the election is honest, and I'm not sure that it can be.
The reaction from Capitol Hill was swift and decisive.
There will be a very peaceful transition.
If he loses, he is going to leave office because we are going to defend American democracy.
The president also continues to attack mail-in voting efforts with unsubstantiated claims of major
Okay,
fraud.
we're starting.
Claims, though, were contradicted by the FBI director at a Senate hearing.
We have not seen, historically, any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether it's by mail or otherwise. We have seen voter fraud at the local level from time to time.
The Trump campaign has mounted legal challenges to mail-in voting in several states, and those cases could make it all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court.
Okay.
The president and first lady were heckled while paying their respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. President Trump will name her successor this Saturday, and he's pushing for
Really?
the Senate confirmation vote before the November election. Deborah Alfarone, CBS News, Capitol Hill.
In local matters, a new poll shows a tight presidential race in Georgia. It's a state that President Trump won by 5 percentage points
Georgia.
last time. The survey was conducted by the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Biden 47%, Trump 47%. Apparently Georgians don't like
1992 when Bill Clinton
when you call their state a shithole.
only race that is down to the wire.
Probably.
The poll also found the races for both of the Senate seats are, quote, too close to call. For more on all of this, I'm joined by Greg Bluestein. He's a political reporter for the Atlanta Journal-Constitution.
Okay, let's see. Maybe it will work today.
The poll also looked at President Trump's handling of the coronavirus pandemic and racial inequality. What did it find?
Well, it found that Georgia voters narrowly gave Joe Biden the edge on racial equality by about 10 points actually. And voters were more or less split over how each president would have handled the coronavirus pandemic. But certainly those two issues remain on the forefront, if not the top priorities of Georgia voters. And it's the reason why President Trump is actually visiting Atlanta tomorrow
I don't know.
to reinforce his case. He's having to play defense in a state that Republicans have held in every presidential election since 1996.
But the poll also found that some 96% of Republican voters in Georgia back the president's re-election bid. How is Joe Biden faring, by contrast, among Democrats and independents in the state?
Yeah, the interesting thing about the poll is both candidates have really rallied their core constituencies. But in Georgia, independents tend to be Republican-leaning voters, and the poll shows that they're splitting independents right now. That's a very good sign for Joe Biden's campaign. Another good sign for his campaign in Georgia is that he's nearing about 30% of white voters. In Georgia, in 2016, Hillary Clinton got about 21% of white voters. So getting to 30% of white voters will be a big sign for his campaign. That's another reason why he's seriously contesting the state, even if he hasn't visited here in the last few months.
Well, let's move on to the Senate races that I mentioned earlier. Republican Senator David Perdue is locked in a competitive re-election fight against Democratic challenger Jon Ossoff. What can you tell us about this race?
So that race is neck and neck. In our poll, and in a series of
Ow. No way. Why?
45-47, which is within the margin of error. David Perdue is a
Does make sense, I'm sorry.
chief executive who is a close ally of President Trump. But as the election nears, he's emphasizing less his ties with the president and more the image of him as a pragmatic, bipartisan leader. And he's also trying to paint Ossoff as some sort of socialist extremist. In an effort to rally Republicans behind him. Ossoff, meanwhile, says that David Perdue is the epitome of corruption in Washington and that the status quo needs to be upended and the Democrats need to take back control of the U.S. Senate.
Well, it is also such a rare and unusual thing for a state to have both of its Senate seats up in play. But the other senator, Republican Kelly Loeffler, faces a special election right now. She holds a narrow lead at 24%. She has two close competitors, Republican Congressman Doug Collins and Democrat Raphael Warnock. They're both at 21 and 20% respectively. But the poll found that still 17% of voters are undecided. What will decide this race in Georgia?
Yeah, this is going to go down to the home stretch, and then in all likelihood, we're going to have a January runoff with the nation's attention on the two top finishers. And of course, the question is, who will those two finishers be? It's sort of a primary in of itself between Kelly Loeffler, the incumbent senator, and Doug Collins, a four-term congressman, who are trying to outduke each other on how conservative they are. In the other frame, in the Democratic frame, Reverend Warnock is the establishment-backed Democrat who's still at around 20%, even though he has institutional support and he has a huge fundraising lead. And at this point, Democrats are urging the other Democratic rivals in that race, because remember, it's a 21-person race, so there's a lot of people in the race. They're urging Matt Lieberman in particular. He's the son of Joe Lieberman, and he's polling about 11% in our poll. They're urging him to get out of the race and clear the way for Reverend Warnock to move ahead and to at least get a plurality, if not try to make that.
Go.
Very unlikely the Democrats see a glimmer of a shot at getting 50+1 and taking advantage of this divided Republican field.
Again,
some wild races happening out there in Georgia. Greg Bluestein, thank you.
Thanks for having me.
Florida prosecutors are dropping prostitution charges against New England Patriots owner Robert Kraft. Authorities said that they would not appeal a court's decision that made a video of the alleged crime inadmissible at trial. Kraft was first charged in February of 2019 with 2 counts of soliciting prostitution. The alleged incident happened at a Florida massage parlor. He pleaded not guilty, but issued a public apology for his action. WikiLeaks founder Julian Assange appeared in a London courtroom on Thursday. He's fighting extradition to the United States, where he faces espionage charges. It's over the release of secret government documents. Now one of his lawyers is going public about their personal relationship. Our Elizabeth Palmer spoke with a woman who is now Assange's fiancée.
It's the same one! It's the same one, is it? You love that one. I try to give them as normal a feeling of a family as I can, and I want them to just see our love and their father's affection to the extent that we can.
But little Gabriel and Max have rarely seen their father. The revered and reviled Julian Assange, founder of WikiLeaks. He's been in hiding, or as he is now, in jail, since before they were born. Currently, he's battling extradition to the U.S., where he's charged with conspiracy to hack the Pentagon computer and using WikiLeaks to publish thousands of classified documents.
My work will not be cowed.
Assange argues it was in the public interest. Stella Morris met Assange a decade ago when she joined his legal team. And then they became lovers.
What went through your mind when you decided to get pregnant with this very controversial public figure?
Well, he was a man I wanted to start a family with, and I was 33, and we decided, let's let's live our lives.
Easier said than
Okay.
done. For 7 years, Assange was a fugitive, holed up in Ecuador's embassy in London.
Fugitive.
As his lawyer, Stella could visit, and in spite of all the scrutiny, they managed
Okay.
to keep their relationship secret.
We found ways to be private. We had a tent in his room that we put, you know, fairy lights in, and
A tent?
a tent. Yeah, we had a
Okay.
you know, like a camping tent.
Was that so even if there were cameras, they wouldn't be able to see?
Right. Yes.
Then, last year, Assange
Okay.
was dragged out of the embassy and jailed while a judge considers the extradition.
Why should Julian not be extradited to the U.S.?
There's no way
good
Julian
question.
will face a fair trial in the U.S.
Going public now, when Assange could be looking at decades of U.S. prison time, is a calculated emotional appeal to the British court.
So, are you hoping that the sight of your two beautiful children and the news that he's got a loving, stable relationship will factor in his not being extradited?
Well, I think the court has to deal with the reality that he has a family in the UK.
He also has a history. Former colleagues who called him a liar,
Interesting,
an
though.
egomaniac, and allegations that he colluded with Russian meddling in the 2016 U.S. election.
Come on, he totally did.
What do you tell the kids about Daddy?
I tell them that Julian is a hero, and they speak to him every day.
Ooh, yeah, he's a Russian hero.
Stella Morris stands by him.
Elizabeth Palmer,
And again, like really, to make a couple of kids, so you have a freaking legal defense. I'm sorry, that's kind of beyond weird, let's say.
State police are here. You can see them behind me. Behind them are the firefighters. They are dousing the flames.
Do you think racism is deeply rooted in Minnesota?
It's deeply rooted in America.
What do you hope comes from this?
This is what's coming from it. The change
Racism is deeply rooted in America. I would agree with it. It is. Unfortunately, it is.
Sense of an election as unprecedented as this. We have two words: true journalism. At CBS News, we believe
Okay,
journalism
what did we get?
states fact,
33,
not
28,
opinion,
and
finds
24.
not just who, what,
Nice.
and where, but why. True journalism is honest, fair, and unbiased. It never chooses a side, and always shines a light on the truth, even when truth is uncomfortable. True journalism listens to all voices and leaves the decisions to you. True journalism helps make sense of our world.
This is our time.
App-based drivers like me are retirees, students, real estate
Oh.
agents, hairstylists, a lot of other independent contractors that just need something in between, and they need the flexibility to be able to do it on their schedule. 80% of drivers drive only a few hours a week, and by a 4-to-1 margin, drivers want to stay independent contractors. Proposition protects our ability to stay independent.
I really
Join me
doubt
and
that.
hundreds of thousands of drivers in voting yes on Prop 22.
Doug. You know, Emu, after all these years, it's the ones that got away that haunt you the most.
Oh.
Because you're not like everybody else. That's why Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance. So you only pay for what you need. What? Oh, I said. Oh, this is my blood. Only pay for what you need. Liberty, liberty,
liberty. Okay. Ah.
You could make your eyes look 10 years younger. Rock Retinol Correction Eye Cream makes it possible. It's clinically proven to reduce the appearance of fine lines by 50%, and it visibly brightens and depuffs in just 4 weeks. Rock.
Where are you going? Hey, number one. Where are you going, number one? Come back. I will forgive you everything. Maybe.
Instacut is here to help take grocery shopping off your plate. Choose
I'll
which
give you a
store to shop
presidential
at,
pardon.
what items you need, and a shopper will safely deliver them.
Call Vlad, he will call
contact-free in as fast as 2 hours.
45 and he will
So
give you a
while
pardon.
you pay charge, your kitchen gets safely restocked. Go to Instacart.com or download the app to get free delivery on your first order using the code ORDER today. You care for your kids. Now multi-care for them with new Vicks Botanicals drug-free syrup. It soothes
Needs
cough,
more stuff.
nasal irritation, and helps clear mucus. New Children's Botanicals Multicare from Vicks.
So.
Vicks Children's was built with the good stuff kids need for cold relief. And is free of some artificial
Nemesis
stuff they don't.
with, yeah, don't have it.
Dump
Don't
the
have
additives,
it, but
keep the
okay.
relief with Vicks Children's.
We invented a new way to wear. With sugar,
Well, I can't, period, so.
merino wool, and eucalyptus trees.
When was Lamborghini Centrino? Do I have Lamborghini Centrino? I don't know. Ferrari. Oh, I do have Lamborghini
Introducing the
Centrino.
Dasher by all birds.
Really? Centeno, yeah. Okay.
You're watching big news.
I wonder.
Engage.
California is set to become the first state in the nation to phase out the sale of new gas-powered cars. A ban will go into effect 15 years from now. The state's governor says it's the right move for the environment and for business. Danya Bacchus reports from L.A.
I'm gonna go with
Using the
it.
hood of an electric-powered Ford Mustang, Governor Gavin Newsom signed an executive order banning the sale of new gas-powered passenger cars by 2035.
If you want to reduce asthma, if you want to mitigate
Well, we
the
have
rise
enough
of
smoke
sea level,
here
if you want to
that
mitigate the
it's...
loss of ice sheets around the globe, then
We
this
don't
is
need
a policy
more cars.
for other states to follow.
The mandate applies only to new cars. Californians will still be able to drive, buy, and sell gas-powered cars on the used car market.
I think it'll just make common sense to go that way.
Nothing can compete with the sound of a naturally aspirated 6.2 liter V8.
Exhaust from cars,
Tesla
trucks, and
will.
other transportation are a large
Believe me,
source of air
it's
pollution,
much
and
more
California has by
fun
far the most cars on the road than
to
any
drive
state.
electrical car.
Governor Newsom says his order will reduce greenhouse gas emissions by
And unfortunately I was
45%.
racing the
And not only
Lamborghini
will it
another
help
day,
the
actually
environment,
today in
he
the morning.
says the electric car mandate will be
So,
good for California's economy.
It's a Tesla 3 versus Lamborghini Diablo
Wants to dominate it.
California
on the streets of Santa Clarita, if you could imagine.
including top seller Tesla,
It's kind of fun.
which announced plans Tuesday to make
And the thing is, the Model 3 could hold its own
It could have a huge impact on the U.S. automobile
against the
industry.
Lamborghini.
Danya Bacchus, CBS News, Los Angeles.
Facebook has removed more than 340 fake accounts, pages, and groups tied to Russian military intelligence. The company
My accounts
says
are still
those networks were not primarily targeting
still there.
the U.S. They instead focused on, quote, the Far East, Russia's neighboring countries, and Syria.
Oh, well.
But Facebook's head of security policy said the presence of these Russian accounts could have larger implications for the upcoming election. For more on all things tech, CNET senior producer Dan Patterson joins me now. Hey there, Dan. We've seen an uptick in the removal of similar Russian networks over the past few months. Why is this so significant?
Why?
Well, it matters because A, the election is happening, and B, Facebook says, according to them, they are taking down these accounts faster. Now, you could say, well, they're popping up faster, but Facebook says that they have less of an impact.
So there are
deeper, meaning
several bugs. Actually, all that you need to do to circumvent that is to be signed up for one of the games, like Facebook games.
The Justice Department wants to force companies
Spend
like Facebook, Google, and
about
Twitter
like
to be
$10
more responsible
on a game.
for the content that appears on their platforms. What is the Department of Justice asking from Congress?
You're golden.
Well, the Department of Justice is asking for, broadly speaking, more scrutiny on the types of content posted on social networks. In the past,
and whatever
Communications Decency Act,
BS you're pushing or propaganda you're pushing, it wouldn't matter because Facebook will never remove your account.
There are particulars that modify this a little bit, but it is largely credited for the creation of sites like YouTube, Flickr, Facebook, and Twitter. So,
Bookface.
Adding a pressure of potential liability to the content that users post, the tech platforms say is, well, impossible. We just can't police this. But that potential for liability means that these companies could be faced with lawsuit after lawsuit after lawsuit.
Okay, Dan,
I don't
let's
think I have
talk
enough money.
about TikTok. President Trump tried to ban it, citing
Oh,
concerns
yeah,
over
TikTok.
national security. Tell
Yeah,
us
go
the
ahead and
latest
friend me
with
on
TikTok's deal
TikTok
with
too.
Oracle and
It's still Do
Walmart.
Not Panic, but
And
with
should users
two
still be
zeros instead of
concerned
O's.
about their security
And a
if
K.
American companies like Oracle and Walmart
Ukrainian, Russian
are
K.
involved? In fact, aren't they actually
So-
buying it because they want this user data?
Well, if you are confused about the state of TikTok today, you are not alone. Look, this changes almost day by day. I try to stay in touch with TikTok on almost a daily basis. And what it means is that the Chinese-owned TikTok, they're owned by a company called ByteDance, would become an American-owned company, jointly owned in
By
this scenario,
Oracle.
by Walmart and by Oracle. So you asked about security and privacy, and look, anytime you give your data to a large technology platform, you're essentially forking over a very valuable commodity. And will you be more safe now than if it was in the hands of a Chinese company? That's almost impossible to tell, but you know that your private information, including what you watch, how long you watch it, who you talk to, that is in
It's
someone else's
aggregate
control
information.
and not yours.
And
Speaking
you
of
are
apps,
the
some
product.
of the biggest app makers have banded together against Apple and Google to
What
form
the?
the
What?
Coalition for
What?
App Fairness.
What was
This
that?
includes companies like Epic Games, Spotify,
Like, really?
Match Group, and Tile. What prompted this coalition? And these are big organizations, so what impact could it have on the industry?
Well, look, these are billion-dollar companies fighting, in Apple's case, trillion-dollar companies. These aren't small little mom-and-pop shops.
Clash of the
Epic
Titans.
Games makes Fortnite. Clash of the Titans. Epic Games makes Fortnite, the world's most popular game. And look, this was prompted by the stake that Apple takes in transactions, which is generally 30% of all transactions.
Whoa,
but
30% is
it's
a lot.
Their allegations unevenly. So
I'm sorry.
Apple's long been accused of making special relationships or charging different.
Well, but
developers,
that's
smaller
Epic
developers
Games,
in some
so...
cases. Basecamp, which is a part of this consortium, makes an email app called Hey, and that kind of kicked off some of this scrutiny this summer when Apple asked them to pay more or to add transactions so they could take a 30% cut. The real issue here is that almost every developer interacts with Apple or Google. And both of these companies take a 30% cut of transactions. For many companies, this is a ton of money. When you think about the amount of money that
yes, if you
Fortnite
think about,
makes, it's quite a bit. But for a small startup, it might be less money, but that money might be 1 or 2 or 3 jobs. So this consortium, this group is saying, hey, look, Apple unfairly applies these policies. We just want fairness. Now, on the other side, Apple says, hey, look, our policies are open for anybody to read, and
they're
you,
way too much.
Epic Games violated these policies, and so we're yanking you from the App Store. It is a clash of the titans. The only people that lose here are consumers trying to play games or pay a little less when you buy a transaction or buy an app on the App Store.
All right, speaking of Apple, Apple just released its Series 6 watch, Dan, and the iPhone 12 is expected next month. What kind of new features can we expect? And let me be really clear, I'm looking for the Face ID to work with my mask on. Is it happening?
Nope, not happening.
We don't know if Face ID will be adapted for the new iPad Air, which was recently announced. They moved Face ID to Touch ID in the power button on the top of the device. But what's really interesting out in iOS 14 is contact tracing. It's not live for everyone right now, but they say they're using Bluetooth
Blue of the
see
tooth.
who you come in contact with. And in fact, they're launching a QR scanner so that if and when you do outdoor dining at a restaurant or any type of
contact
dining, you're able to
tracing
scan,
means
QR
if they will
code
be
and
able
have
to do that.
register with the other people who are at that restaurant. We will see a number of
So
changes
it's
coming,
collecting more data about
Apple
people
announces
around you
the
without their
iOS
consent,
iPhone
actually.
12 later in October.
Under the guise of contact tracing.
All right, we'll have to keep waiting
wouldn't
then. Dan Patterson, thank you.
Say,
Great to see.
I don't know.
You
I
may
honestly
think
don't
with
know.
so many kids remote learning from home, a lot of school buses would be sitting idle. But it turns out in some areas they're needed more than ever this year. Here's Nikki Batiste.
Yay, Wi-Fi
This
hotspots.
school year, Danielle Mackey is doubling
Huh?
as a
How-
bus driver and a tech
What just
guru.
happened?
My bus is a rolling internet.
How did I... One.
Delivering Wi-Fi
I don't know.
on wheels to thousands of students in Michigan's Wayne-Westland School District.
We have a lot of motorhome complexes that don't have the connectivity.
Superintendent John Dignan says at least 40% of the families in his district lack the
I
internet needed
hit the
for
Pro
remote
League
learning.
somehow.
These 21 mobile hotspot buses are the district's innovative solution to the digital divide that so many school children face across the country, including Danielle's.
My kids actually started falling behind as well. To do something on your laptop. Now that we have the mobile hotspot, they're able to connect, stay connected.
I'm not failing anymore because there's the internet and it won't, and it's loading now.
Loading,
With each bus parks where Wi-Fi is needed most, students can now access it from their bedrooms.
What does the mobile hotspot bus symbolize in your community?
I think
It symbolizes the failure of the internet provider companies who rip you off, don't do their part of the job, and leave you hanging.
Coming up in our next hour, it's
That's what
Red
it
and
said
Blue.
symbolizes.
We're taking a look at felony disenfranchisement laws, the latest in the fight behind restoring the right to cast a
I
ballot.
want to be a legend.
All that and more coming up next on
See,
Red and Blue.
I want to be a legend, but I don't have no cars.
A day of raw emotion as this city and the country mourned a man whose death has inspired a movement.
State police are here. Behind them, firefighters dousing the flames.
What do you hope comes from this?
This is what's coming from it. The change is here.
98K, don't have it.
The CBS Evening News with Nora O'Donnell on CBS.
Okay, let's go.
App-based drivers like me are retirees,
App-based drivers,
real estate agents,
students, real estate hairstyles,
independent
yes,
contractors,
and lots of more people who don't want to be abused by Uber or Lyft.
to be able to do it on their schedule.
No, you don't really can do it on your own schedule because,
drivers want to stay independent
well,
contractors. Prop 22 protects our ability to stay
it's
independent.
complicated.
Join me and hundreds of thousands of drivers in voting yes on Prop 22.
No on Prop 22. So, remember, no on Prop 22.
And the inspiration for our new LA Mex burritos, like the SoCal classic.
Because we don't want people to rip other people off. Ooh, I didn't eat a Pollo Loco for a long time, actually. Ah, lag.
The results? Well, there were no results. Because they're animals. They don't have a concept of money.
Why would the animal have concept of money?
Make the smart choice and switch to Sling. Get the best of cable for the best price.
I don't know, it's kind of the same price.
Sling.com.
Like, when you look at Sling, it's exactly the same price. Boom.
Correction eye cream makes it possible.
Did it all break down? Yep, well break down.
Fine lines by 50%, and it visibly brightens and depuffs in just 4 weeks.
Okay.
Rock, we prove our promises. It's about the humans. These humans,
sluggish.
those humans, proven and golden.
So,
It's about getting more than health insurance and a partner who listens and acts. Humana calls it human care. It's talking to a doctor.
Humana calls it a repo.
Before you ask. It's helping you fix the
It's a repo.
and keeping you social, online or off. It's getting to know you, so
Okay.
you can be your healthiest. That's
No.
our superpower. That's human care from Humana.
Human car.
We know you've got your hands full at home.
I'm building a
Okay.
spaceship.
So Instacart is here to help make grocery shopping a little easier.
So, for
Choose
example,
which store to shop
Instacar,
What items you need.
like Uber Eats,
how you want
Uber,
and a shopper will
etc.
safely
Yes, you
deliver
could
them
make
contact-free in as fast as 2 hours.
some
Because
money,
between
but
teaching, cooking, and parenting, you could use one less
question
job to
is
do.
how much
Go
do
to
you need to,
Instacart.com or download the
how
app
much
to
are you
get free
actually
delivery on
making,
your first order using the code order
and
today.
the company is not responsible for anything, and they take like 30 to 40% of your fare anyhow, just for having an app.
Eucalyptus tree.
I have apply import parts, for example.
Natural materials that give
Let's
athletes
try.
the strength and the speed to compete.
So,
Because when
well,
nature
that's
wins,
kind of a big question. Like, should you allow
introducing the dash app by all birds.
like people who do those kind of jobs
This could be the worst that you've ever
to be a contractor, or to remain like slave labor, pretty much, or you protect them? Like, I don't know. What do you think? Like, what should people do?
Download the free
Or,
CBS News app
like,
to watch.
I don't know. I really don't. It's like,
to share with you.
I know that lots of companies abuse
How does it all play out?
independent contractors, claiming that, oh well, my employee who works 40 hours a week, or 50 hours a week, let's say, who expected to be at work from 7 in the morning to 8 o'clock at night, is an independent contractor somehow.
We're now 40 days away from Election Day, and President Trump is refusing to commit to a central tenet of American democracy, peacefully conceding power should he lose. Despite making law and order a central part of his campaign, the president is casting doubt on legal forms of voting that he doesn't find legitimate. Here's what he said as he left the White House this afternoon.
Yes, that's on.
Only legitimate if you win. So we have to be very careful with the ballots. The ballots, that's a whole big scam. You know, they found, I understand, 8 ballots in a
okay, 8 ballots. 8. In some location. 8. Oh my gosh. It's such a fraud.
They throw them out if they have the name Trump on it, I guess, but they had ballots.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay, well, they still found them in a river, whether they had a name on it or not. But the other ones had the Trump name on it, and they were thrown into a waste paper basket.
Well, maybe people change their mind.
I'm not sure that it can be. I don't know that it can be.
8.
This whole
so he's going off about 8 freaking ballots. You kidding me?
We'll see.
Are you kidding me?
9 states use the type of voting you referenced, places where ballots are mailed directly to all voters. 7 of those 9 are overwhelmingly Democratic. The 8th, Utah, is a deeply Republican state. Only Nevada, worth 6 electoral college votes, is
come on.
considered a battleground state in this election. That comment comes after the president said this in the briefing room last night.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
And the ballots is a disaster. Oh my fucking god. Oh my god. Like, really?
The ballots, and you'll have a very peaceful. There won't be a transfer, frankly. There'll be a continuation. The ballots are out of control. You know it. And you know who knows it better than anybody else? The Democrats know it better than anybody else. Go ahead.
Like, really?
Shortly after the 2016 election, President Trump claimed without evidence he would have won the popular vote if you deduct the millions of people he said voted illegally. He even appointed a commission to investigate it. The commission disbanded
and
after
technically,
it uncovered no evidence of any such fraud. And the FBI director told senators this morning his agency has never seen a large-scale voter fraud effort by mail or in person.
I have not seen, historically, any kind of coordinated national voter fraud effort in a major election, whether it's by mail or otherwise. We have seen voter fraud at the local level from time to time to change a federal election outcome. by mounting that kind of fraud at scale would be a major challenge for an adversary, but people should make no mistake, we're vigilant.
How about telling your people to vote by mail and then go vote in person? Will that constitute a large-scale voter fraud?
Ed is a CBS News political correspondent,
It is.
and Elena is a White House reporter at Axios. Welcome to you all. Ed, despite what the president says, there is already work underway for a potential transfer of power, correct?
Nope.
That's right.
Nope.
The Presidential Transition Act passed during the Obama administration with broad bipartisan support actually codifies a few things that have to happen as soon as both parties have a nominee. So in August, essentially, the presidential transition began.
Nope.
This isn't designed to favor one or the other.
Theoretically, it's
designed to
begin.
put them on an equal playing field. And so the
De
federal
facto,
government has had to provide office space and assistance to the Biden transition team, which they are doing.
Oh, they are?
The
Wow.
transition, in essence, is underway if it needs to happen. Biden has tapped a series of staffers and well-known Democrats across the country to help advise.
Maybe my policy.
The advisory board run by his good buddy Ted Kaufman, the former senator from Delaware. It includes people like Pete Buttigieg, his former primary rival, and then New Mexico Governor Michelle Lujan.
I'm pretty sure my policy major
here in Washington
professor is one of the staffers, because she's not teaching in university this year, and she was actually one of the first people who actually broke the news to us that Biden will be running for president.
President says one thing,
and it was in 2017.
Underway, and that's part of the reason why that law was passed, was to ensure that no matter what, whether there were prolonged counts in the results, whether one of the candidates suggested they wouldn't necessarily abide by the results, that the federal government, at least at the professional or career level, was making preparations just in case there is a new president next year.
Well, how much career
functionally, what is the
people are there?
Between accepting a free and fair election and committing to a peaceful transfer of power?
Well, Elaine, I think key here is what the president means and what his press secretary today means when she said
that was close.
Will agree to accept the results of a free and fair election. But as we heard from the president later this afternoon when he was getting ready to board Marine One, he said he doesn't think it's going to be honest. And I think the key here is, what if he loses? What will he do in the scenario if it's determined
well,
that Joe Biden
don't get me started
whether it be on November 3rd
when he
or
loses.
the weeks after, of course, because there's going to be an incredible influx of mail ballots that be needing to count. So I think the question here is, how will the president respond? And that's what no one really from the White House or the president has answered.
You do know.
He's already
we
said
do
he
know.
doesn't expect it to be a free and fair election.
Well,
I think we can very
he
much
will mobilize as much of military force as he possibly can, and will try to suppress any dissent in
election lawyers have said is
in the areas where he believes the force needs to be used.
Scenario on steroids, where in 2000,
and it's in less than 2 months.
State, Florida, this time around with the pandemic's widespread
It is what it is.
States all over the country and voters all over the country.
So the question is
for litigation and uncertainty in several states, and so I think we need to prepare.
So if the Supreme Court justice
or and Justice fairly,
that
even
they
by
want
Joe
to
Biden, there could be a case where they dispute the election results.
Oh, they definitely will dispute
And
the election
Caitlin,
results.
2
Come on.
months ago, you reported on this very topic, on what happens if the president does not accept the election results. What did you find?
Well, first and foremost, it's not up to the president. Constitutional law professors told us that if it is determined
Come
that
on,
somebody else
really?
wins the election, then that person is sworn
Didn't even
in
touch
on
me.
January 20th, and then Trump would become, as constitutional law professor Jonathan Turley, our CBS News contributor, told me,
really?
he becomes a guest of the White House, and if he doesn't leave, he becomes an unwanted guest and can be removed by Secret Service. But let's take a step back and just talk about how our elections are conducted and how the results come to be. So we have an electoral college system. Each state tallies up the votes in their state and awards electors based on the popular vote in their state.
Correct.
There are exceptions, of course, in Maine and Nebraska who award proportional delegates. Those electors actually meet on December 14th and say who
they're
they're
the one
voting
who
for.
elect
and then
the president.
New Congress meets on January 6th and certifies those results. Now, I spoke to a constitutional law professor, Ned Foley, at the Ohio State University, and he was very, very patient with me and walked me through how all of this works. And he explained a scenario that could be pretty troubling in a very close election. Basically, what could happen is
what will happen?
The state's a battleground state. Take a battleground state. That state tallies up the votes and declares candidate X the winner of that state. But candidate Y says, wait a second, there were some suspicious mail-in ballots. I don't really believe that this is right. That candidate could go to the state legislature and try to appeal to them and get them to award electors differently. So you could have two competing results coming from a state. Now, this happened in 1876, and spoiler alert, Rutherford B. Hayes ended up winning that election because you had the conflicting results from three different states. It had to go to Congress. Congress had to come up with a commission that involved a lot of different people. They went through a whole process and determined Hayes the winner. So basically, constitutional law professors are telling us that everybody involved will want a decisive election so as not to have to go through these kind of nightmarish and chaotic scenarios. But those could be kind of scenarios that we could deal with. Now, candidates can certainly challenge results in the states, and both campaigns have big, expansive legal teams designed to do just that if it is in fact warranted.
Well, it's not warranted, but it will be used.
We know that the Biden campaign has staffed up with multiple lawyers. What about the Trump campaign's preparations for a close election fight?
Well, Elaine, I think there's no secret that the president and his campaign expects some sort of legal battle. I think that's why the president was very careful, or as many people say, not careful with his words yesterday when asked whether there would be or whether he would commit to a peaceful transfer of power. So by all means, yes, the Trump campaign has staffed up with their legal team. They are preparing for
that's
some
why
sort
they're
of
pushing for the Supreme Court
legal battle after the election. I think from most people I speak with on the Trump campaign and Republicans more broadly, they believe that on November 3rd, just given the nature of the way Democrats and Republicans vote, they think that the president will probably have more votes on November 3rd, or at least comparatively, between a mail-in ballot versus going into the election polling site on November 3rd. It takes longer for mail-in ballots sometimes to be counted. That's when Vice President Biden could get more votes, and this is kind of the scenario that they're gaming out. So if that does happen, that's when it gets really tricky, and I think that's exactly the scenario that his team is planning for, and that's what why they're staffing up in some part on the Trump campaign with their legal advisors.
I mean, listening to all of this, Ed, Caitlin used the word nightmarish to describe some of these potential scenarios, which seem extremely complex,
it's not
frankly,
nightmarish.
Voters,
that's what will happen. Come on, people.
Confusion if it ever got to that point. So let me ask you specifically about the Biden camp and the legal team. What exactly are they doing to try to prepare for the election and the days, possibly weeks afterwards?
Yeah, they also have hundreds of lawyers at their disposal ready to go if need be in the various states. The idea being that you have them at the ready in the various states that could have potential legal issues, and then have another team that can swoop in from here in Washington to help out. Bob Bauer, the former White House general counsel, guys like Mark Elias, a very popular and busy Democratic elections lawyer these days. He and his team at Perkins Coie here in D.C. would be involved in any kind of legal challenges if need be. But they understand that there is a complex myriad of potential scenarios, potential delays, potential issues with not only mail-in ballots, but lines not being held open for people who may get stuck in them on election day, other issues of concern regarding instructions that go out, the rules on
I wouldn't
when a ballot can be counted once it's returned if it doesn't get back
by
to
them if they will ask, are you Democrat or are you Republican? And they will allow people to vote based on that.
Pennsylvania, Ohio,
like,
South
why not?
Carolina, Texas, places like that.
Oh no, there is something wrong with your identity.
And both campaigns,
I don't believe that your ID is correct.
Parties and other entities are all involved in sorting that out right now. So look, Americans just...
Oh, you kind of look democratic. You don't have Trump memorabilia on you, so I don't let you vote.
Instructions closely. If you decide to go vote on election
again, and voting twice, for example. Again, voting twice. Also, it's illegal. It's fraud. It's voter fraud.
They can do, Elaine, is just tune in to CBSN and CBS News on election night, and we'll walk you through it as long as it takes. If it means we have to cancel Wednesday and Thursday prime time,
really?
We'll figure it out. But you know, just like everything else this year, it's going to be a little different. Require a little more patience and a little more explanation.
No, it's a really good point because we
How's that
have
for a shameless plug?
on the various. That's great, but you know, in all truth,
I love how they're so optimistic.
A great deal of reporting on CBSN and on the network side, trying to do just that: walk voters through the logistics of how various states are trying to get this done. Whether it be taking them inside and behind the scenes, where folks are trying to set up equipment to deal with all of this,
a shift
showing
show.
exactly what it means to have
complete
the
shift show.
Kind of envelope placed in an envelope for your ballot to actually count.
So would I recommend you to buy a gun? Absolutely not. You don't want to have a gun in your house. And if you got drafted to your National Guard, which is possible, you will have the gun and enough of ammunition to last you.
I think it's very important. I think this will end up in the Supreme Court.
Yes.
And I think it's very important that we have 9 justices. But I think it's better if you go before the election because I think this scam that the Democrats are pulling, it's a scam.
Like, really? You're just saying that.
Supreme Court. And I think having a 4-4 situation is not a good situation.
But you
get that,
you're perpetrating the scam. Come on,
8-0 or
man.
9-0.
Like, really?
So, Elena, the Supreme Court is currently sitting at a 5-3 conservative majority. How much more advantageous is it for Republicans to make that 6-3 before the election?
Well, it's very advantageous. I think if you look at historical precedent or any time you look at a Supreme Court fight, Justice Brett Kavanaugh, his Supreme Court fight, the most recent ahead of the midterm elections, it's a massive base igniter. I think Republicans across the board are looking at this as a lightning rod to turn out the Republican base, turn out voters who are maybe unsure of who they want to vote for but care more about social issues ahead of November. And so massive incentive. And everyone I've spoken with who are Republicans, I mean, I think, granted, there are some people on the Senate side, like Senator Susan Collins, who might be a little bit worried about what this means for her seat. But by and large, they think that they want to get this done before the November 3rd election. The president says he thinks it's in their best interest. Senator Majority Leader Mitch McConnell says it's in their best interest. Senator Lindsey Graham, who chairs the Judiciary Committee,
of course it's in their best interest. If you want to steal election, you need to stack Supreme Court.
That is not stopping. So I think another example of everything we were just looking at between voting and what happens there, another big argument that they're saying is about
we know
the Supreme Court got, you know,
that Bush-Gore
decision if it comes down to it after the
was actually decided at Supreme Court, who deferred to recounting the ballots again and again. So we're playing the same game. Even no matter how many people will turn out, they will contest it.
Well, Ed, it's been a relatively quiet day for Joe Biden. I hear that a lid was called on his day at 9:20 a.m. A lid signals to reporters and photographers no other public events for the rest of the day. But here's his response last night when he gave some of his first comments about Supreme Court contender Amy Coney.
If you have basic knowledge of the political system and you have a basic knowledge of how states election works. You don't really need to be a constitutional lawyer and anything to understand how these elections will be abused, let's say.
So Ed, I'm not sure if you were able to hear. He said, I don't know much about her, but I think we should focus on what this means for healthcare, etc. But why isn't Joe Biden engaging more, Ed, in this Supreme Court fight?
Like, first is voter suppression.
At least in the short term, it's a winner for the president.
If
the whole goal of the Biden campaign is to knock
there is any ambiguity
preferred turf and talking points that he would
in
like
battleground states,
most of the
they could say it's a fraud. Like, whatever is not the Republican is a fraud. Like, there is no way we could lose. Like, okay, let's forget about 200,000 people dead and economy in shambles. It's not something that you could say that people will really want to hold against you, because you did such a great freaking job. So, and if that's possible, if there is
and that takes the entire campaign off.
Well, honestly, unless it's like majority of votes is for Biden, Republicans will launch a lawsuit in every single state. For as long as
knowing the way the rules are written right now, he may not say this publicly, but
so the moment, well, they of course they sue, and they will try to hold as much of the count back as possible. Basically, if 30-day passes and the case is still in court, technically the local legislative body, like local senate, could decide who needs to be a president. So majority of battleground states has a legislative body 75 to 80% Republican or GOP. So, like, even in California, it's possible for California's votes to go to Trump if they could hold off on accounts for 30 days. Like, I'm just saying. It is absolutely possible. Like, the stack between California Democrats and Republicans are not that big. There is only like 2 seats difference between oh my, ow, that hurts. Okay, so it's possible if you give the ability to choose only to your local legislative, then technically the elections that you just have, well, they're pointless. Your local legislative will decide who wins, and if it's Republican legislature, they will give the votes to Trump, regardless of the popular vote. And if people will want to go and protest, guess what will happen? Well, what will happen? We will have Border Patrol and ICE beating leaving shit out of people. That's what will happen. Now, the governors of the states will have to decide what to do. Will they support federal government or Trump's secret police, or they will have to order National Guard to stop violence and protect protesters? So, and it's just to think in, the governor will need to tell National Guard to guard the protesters. Is that possible? Or everybody just roll over and show their true colors? That's the question.
And many achieve remission in as little as 4 weeks.
Humira can lower your
Oh,
ability
I
to
love
fight
Chicago.
infections. Serious and
I
sometimes
honestly
fatal
love
infections,
Chicago.
including tuberculosis and cancers,
Oh,
including the
maybe
things
I'm
that happen
kind
because
of
of
missing
blood,
that
liver, and nervous system
four-season
problems, serious
vibe.
allergic reactions, and new or worsening heart failure.
And,
Tell your doctor if you've been to areas where certain fungal infections are common, and if you've had TB, hepatitis B, or protein infections, or have flu-like symptoms or sores. Don't start Humira if you have an infection.
Be there for you and them. Ask your doctor about Humira. With Humira, remission is possible.
If you can't afford your medicine,
Snow. I miss snow.
This
But I miss snow like
This is 55
playing.
minutes of slow
What you doing?
grilled
Did you
food.
took a bath?
This is fresh,
Nothing?
never frozen, and always
You
cut
took a
to
shower?
This
Oh
is
wow.
$20 familia dinner.
Bye babies.
Pollo Loco.
What are you talking to?
To you.
No, what are you talking to?
To you. I'm talking to you.
Why are you talking when you're complaining that's not talking?
I don't know. I'm just talking to myself.
The ACLU says roughly 5.8 million people in the U.S. can't vote this year because of a patchwork of state felony disenfranchisement laws. CBSN political reporter Caitlin Huey-Burns takes a look at the fight to give Americans their right to vote after serving prison sentences.
What?
I ran through the parking lot. I'm like, oh my God,
What?
I'm going to vote, I'm going to vote.
On November 3rd, Tasha
Yeah.
Williams will cast a ballot for the first time in her life.
Yeah.
I'm going to
It's
let
drifting.
everybody, hey y'all, this is my
It's called
first
drifting.
time voting. It's going to be, look, a sense of excitement.
She's
Well,
one
that's
of
how
about
you drive.
36,000 people in Louisiana to benefit from a recent state law restoring voting rights for those previously incarcerated. Williams served time for a nonviolent drug offense. She says not having that right to vote felt like being locked up all over again.
It made you question yourself, and it made me kind of angry. I just did 3 years in jail. You know, I thought I was finished with prison.
I just feel like it's kind of like double jeopardy.
After serving 2 years in prison for grand theft, Christine Vincent also saw voting as a chance to put her past behind her. But in her home state of Florida, that isn't so easy.
I didn't know that you couldn't vote when owing fines.
In 2018, Florida voters passed a constitutional amendment giving former felons the right to vote, with exceptions for murder and sexual offenses. But the governor signed a law requiring them to first pay off all court fees and fines. And this month, a federal appeals court upheld that law. Vincent has to pay back at least $8,000 in order to vote, which she's doing with the help of the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition.
When you're going to go and cast your ballot in November, how do you think you're going to feel when you're able to do that, if you're able to do that?
I'm gonna feel like I'm not a criminal. I'm gonna be standing in line with a bunch of voters. To me, it's like I'm one of them almost. Like I just joined the good side instead of being on the bad side for so long.
The restoration of voting rights on paying back money, that's analogous to a property tax or a property qualification.
Daryl Atkinson is a civil rights attorney and co-director
Property
of
qualification.
Forward Justice in North
So
Carolina.
who could tell me what it is?
There this month expanded voting rights for the formerly incarcerated.
I can vote in North Carolina, but if I would ever move back to the place of my birth, I can't vote in the state of Alabama because I still owe them money. I still owe them money on a fine that was attended to my 1996 conviction, a $50,000 fine that I've been paying since 2004 when it was brought to my attention. I thought I paid enough with my body through incarceration.
Currently, 8 states require action beyond the completion of a prison sentence in order to vote, such as wait times, intervention by the governor, or paying off fines.
It's an absolute barrier for a lot of people.
Jimmy Fasig is an attorney in Florida. In 1995, he was convicted of drug trafficking while in law school. He had the means to hire a lawyer to successfully petition the governor to restore his civil rights.
The system should be about rehabilitating people that have committed crimes so that they can eventually become productive members of society.
Right, so part of that reentrance into society is the ability to cast a ballot.
Yes, it's exactly right. The ability to cast a ballot, but it's more than that. It's the ability to have a voice.
That sentiment has started to transcend partisanship. Last month, Iowa Governor Kim Reynolds, a Republican, signed an executive order giving voting rights to convicted felons who completed their prison sentences.
Is there any partisan benefit to this?
Formerly incarcerated white male in Tallahassee might vote for Trump. And you know what? That's perfectly fine for me. Because it isn't about, we aren't doing this for Democrats or Republicans. We're doing this for our people, because our people deserve to have a voice.
What does the right to vote mean for people who have been incarcerated?
It means everything. It means I'm a citizen. It means I'm a part of the fabric of this country. It means I get to participate.
A federal court has rejected the Trump campaign's attempt to roll back changes to Nevada's election laws. This year, the state is sending ballots to all registered voters because of the pandemic. The Trump campaign and Republicans claimed in their lawsuit that Nevada's vote-by-mail law, quote, makes voter fraud and other ineligible voting inevitable. The judge ruled that Republicans had failed to establish standing for their suit. While campaigning in Nevada earlier this month, President Trump slammed Democratic Governor Steve Sisolak in an interview with our Reno affiliate KTVN.
Have a governor that just to have a rally made it very tough. So if he's in charge of millions of ballots, you're going to have a problem with this state. We're going to win this state easily. But when they send out millions of ballots to people that they don't even know who they're sending them to, or maybe they do know, and maybe that's even worse, you're going to have a big problem with this state.
Okay.
Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford joins me now from Las Vegas. Attorney
That's
General
will be
Ford,
fun.
Thanks very much for being with us. We heard what the president said there. Is the governor in charge of ballots in your state?
No.
Well, first off, thanks so much for having me on. To answer your question, the answer is absolutely not. As I've said several times before, and as our governor has indicated, our Secretary of State, who happens to be a Republican, oversees elections in our state. We have 17 counties. The majority of the registrars in that county who oversee elections are Republican as well. So there is no way that our government is going to be able to maintain control over these ballots or have anything relative to fraud to do with this election.
You mentioned your Secretary of State. So over the summer, Nevada's Secretary of State requested additional oversight to your state's new election law, which allows ballot harvesting. First of all, tell us what ballot harvesting is, and did that make it harder for your office to defend the law against the Trump campaign's lawsuit?
Well, frankly, I don't use the phrase ballot harvesting. I think they view it as a pejorative way to talk about assisting voters who otherwise wouldn't have the ability to get their ballots to the polling locations. And so the ballot collection process that is allowed under the new law simply allows people, again, who don't have otherwise access to being able to get their ballots to the mail, to the polling locations, to get assistance from individuals to do that. It's particularly important on our Native American reservations, for example, who are looking forward to utilizing this in order to allow some of the more elderly individuals to vote.
Is your office allocating any additional resources this year to monitoring or investigating any potential voter fraud?
Well, one of the good things about the state of Nevada is that for years we've had an election integrity task force that was begun, frankly, a few years back by our Democratic Secretary of State, Ross Miller, that has been continued by our current Republican Secretary of State, Barbara Sagaski. And it is a task force that includes federal, state, and local enforcement agencies, including the FBI, DPS, our local police departments as well, that work together to investigate fraud and to try to stop it before it starts. So we have that in place, and our resources are available, and we are adamantly opposed to indicating that there is any form of fraud taking place right now.
Well, there's also a new tool for people in Nevada to track their ballot. How does that work?
Yeah, it's called Ballot Tracks. And just this week, our Nevada Secretary of State announced her partnership for the general election to allow voters to receive a text message, an email, or telephone calls alerting them about the status of their ballots. This system is going to track the ballots from when it's first mailed to the voter in the county, to when it's received by the county through the mail, and when it's actually counted by the local election officials. And so we are excited about that. Voters can register for the system by providing their names, their date of birth, and their zip codes. And again, this is another effort that we are undertaking in our state to ensure the integrity of our elections.
So many of Nevada's election changes are temporary because of the pandemic. Do you think that they should stay in place after the pandemic is over?
Who knows?
Well, the law that's at issue here is a law that was specifically designed to be utilized during a declared state of emergency or a declared disaster, which we are currently experiencing. And so the law doesn't address or doesn't apply in non-emergency circumstances. And I do believe in the wisdom of the legislature that they've made the right choice there. But I'm not the policymaker in that regard, and I will leave it to them to determine whether they want to extend some additional protections or additional opportunities outside of emergency circumstances.
And I'm just curious, how are you planning to vote this year? Will it be by mail?
It will be. Yeah, I voted by mail in the primary. It was easy, so my whole family did, and we'll be doing it again this year.
All right, Nevada Attorney General Aaron Ford. Mr. Attorney General, thanks very much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
A reminder, for more information on how to vote in your state, head to cbsnews.com/vote.
Oh, well.
Coming up next on Red and Blue, how President Trump plans to fill Ruth Bader Ginsburg's Supreme Court seat and how his pick could change the federal judiciary. Plus, more on the growing anger over a grand jury's decision not to bring homicide charges against officers involved in the shooting death of Breonna Taylor. We'll be right back. You're streaming Red and Blue on CBSN.
So let's talk about the... Well, yes. That. So it's okay for a police officer to barge into your house, and if you without announcing themselves, and if you try to protect yourself, they pretty much legally could murder your entire family.
These humans, those humans,
well,
proven and
like, think about it.
It's about getting more than health insurance. And
how in the world could you be safe?
Human care.
And the best thing, they just need to have a blank warrant. So with them, it might not be even a warrant for your address. It might be a warrant for the address 2 or 3 blocks away from you, and all that the cops needs to say, it's, well, law enforcement officers needs to say is like, well, it was an honest mistake. So, but our life is more important than life of any citizens and any civilians out there. So their life matter, yours not as much. So, and only thing that they could be held accountable on is if they miss, if they don't kill you, if they don't hit you. So if they shoot and they miss, and bullet goes somewhere else, they're responsible. If that bullet hits someone, regardless, they're not responsible for it. They cannot be held accountable. So, if you think about it, like, it's understandable why people are pissed off.
I have lived my life for this moment.
Yep.
Expect the unexpected.
And a gay job.
Trust me, it's a good story.
Our future is now.
Nope. Nope.
But it will be our privilege to make that future bright.
Bright future. Huh. Star Trek Discovery. That's something good to talk about. Yeah, I'm actually excited about new season. Like, regardless of stuff how they ended the last one with the time crystal and the time travel.
President Trump visited the Supreme Court today to pay his respects to the late Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg, whose seat he is trying to quickly fill against her wishes. Christina refuted reports on the president's icy reception from other mourners.
President Trump and First Lady Melania Trump arrived at the Supreme Court Thursday morning to pay their respects to Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg. Mourners waiting in line to do the same booed and chanted when they saw the president had arrived. Wednesday, the president said he wants a replacement for Ginsburg seated on the court before the November 3rd election.
Just in case it would be more political than it should be, I think it's very important to have a ninth justice.
Later in the day, he refused to say if he would accept the outcome of that election.
Will you commit to making sure that there is a peaceful transferal of power after the election?
Well, we're going to have to see what happens. You know that I've been complaining very strongly about the ballots, and the ballots are a disaster.
Legal fights have already started about the use of mail-in ballots, and those battles could find their way to the Supreme Court, especially if November's vote is close. Campaigning in North Carolina Wednesday, Democratic nominee Joe Biden responded to the president's comments.
What country are we in? Look, he says the most irrational things. I don't know what to say about it, but it does surprise me.
And he focused on what the president's Supreme Court pick could mean in the long term.
For health care, what it's going to mean for, once again, being able to say...
I don't know.
It's very real tonight. Most likely that she will go home. I feel like that will probably
Love Island. What's a Love Island?
I've been thinking a lot today about Lincoln, about Houston, and who I can see myself with.
Pray to God that there's like some save, like at the end.
Yeah. I came here to find love, and if Bennett doesn't feel a connection with anyone else, at least we have a genuine friendship connection. But
Love Island.
Very big chance of going home tonight.
Please.
So fast. I love it. Literally earlier I was like, I'm not nervous at all, and now my whole mind is like completely changed. I'm so nervous.
I feel so bad for him. And I should be feeling bad for myself.
No. News are better. Sorry.
you're gonna make tonight?
No, I said news.
Having a very tough time.
But this is not weird.
Finance regulations in Citizens United, striking down the Voting Rights Act in Shelby County versus Holder, allowing partisan gerrymandering, kicking people off the voter rolls, making it harder for people to unionize. Time after time, this Supreme Court has become yet another partisan political branch of government, and so it needs to be reformed. The legitimacy of the court is really at stake and has been. And so that is why, in particular, in response to the Republican theft of the Supreme Court seat, taking it from President Obama, not even considering his nomination of Merrick Garland in 2016, and then changing the Senate rules to ram through President Trump's pick Neil Gorsuch in 2017. We believed then that the Supreme Court needed to be reformed, not only by expansion, but also adding term limits to depoliticize the process. And now, looking at what Republicans are considering doing here and the Supreme Court vacancy before us, we think that the case is even stronger.
Well, this plan is essentially contingent on Democrats winning both the White House and the Senate. Dianne Feinstein, the top Democrat on the Senate Judiciary Committee, is against ending the legislative filibuster, the first step in making any major changes without 60 votes. On top of that, Joe Biden was against expanding the court during the primary and has stayed quiet on the matter this week. And several of your party's top Senate challengers, including Sarah Gideon in Maine and Mark Kelly in Arizona, also seem opposed to adding seats. What's your message to them, Christopher, about why you think the court should be expanded?
Look, I don't really have a message for them right now. I think that what Senate Democratic leader Chuck Schumer has said is that all options should be on the table if Republicans push through this nominee this close to an election in what is not only rank hypocrisy, but really what's at stake here is the future of the Affordable Care Act. It's about the future of access to abortion or the ability to prevent gun violence and address climate change. So I think we have a long way to go before we really have this conversation about what happens next if Republicans are able to ram this nomination through. And right now, what we're really focused on convincing people of is that this seat shouldn't be filled. I know that you opened this by saying that Donald Trump may fill the seat against Justice Ginsburg's wishes. It's not only her wishes. Poll after poll show that Americans, including a majority of Republicans, do not think that this seat should be filled before the election.
Just very quickly on this notion of expanding the courts, are you concerned about a situation where each party could essentially take turns expanding and packing the courts?
Well, right now we have a situation where the Republican Party is the only one taking turns. Republicans changed the size of the Supreme Court in 2016 to 8 because it benefited them and their raw partisan political agenda. In 2017, they changed it back to 9. And now here again, we have them stealing the seat by changing. It is unprecedented for a Supreme Court nominee to be confirmed this close to a presidential election. In fact, votes are already being cast today. And so if this happens, Democrats have to respond really to preserve our democracy. The legitimacy of the Supreme Court is at stake, and there has to be some sort of response. The fact that Republicans likely will exercise raw political power again shouldn't be a deterrent from Democrats doing what's necessary today to make sure that our rights are protected.
Christopher Kang from Demand Justice, thank you.
Thanks so much.
Yep.
Police in Louisville say they will enforce a curfew Thursday night after 2 officers were shot during protests over the Breonna Taylor grand jury decision. Following months of investigating, the officers involved in Taylor's death were not charged. CBS News' Jerika Duncan is in Louisville with the latest.
Officer down, right there. Officer down. Officials in Louisville say they have video that shows 26-year-old Lorenzo Johnson shooting 2 police officers during last night's protest following the grand jury's decision in the Breonna Taylor case.
I'm extremely happy to report that one of them was treated and released from University Hospital with a leg wound, and the other, who was struck in the abdomen, is in stable condition after undergoing significant surgeries and is expected to recover.
Although protests started peacefully, there were reports of garbage can fires, damaged vehicles, and looting. Police made 127 arrests. The protest came after months of waiting for a decision in Taylor's case. Former Louisville detective Brett Hankinson was indicted for endangering lives when he fired 10 shots into an apartment next to Taylor's. Hankinson was arrested and released on bail. Officers Jonathan Mattingly and Miles Cosgrove, who fired the shot that killed Taylor, will not face state criminal charges.
Use of force by Mattingly and Cosgrove was justified to protect themselves.
Taylor was killed on March 13th as police executed a search warrant for drugs and money. Neither were found. Her boyfriend Kenneth Walker says he believed the police were intruders, so he fired a single shot which hit Mattingly in the thigh. Police returned fire. 6 shots hit Taylor.
Somebody kicked in the door inside my girlfriend.
Walker has maintained police did not identify themselves before they used a battering ram on the door. Cameron said the officers did knock and announce.
That information was corroborated by another witness.
But attorneys for Walker and Taylor say that witness initially told police he did not hear the officers announce themselves. And an additional 12 neighbors said the same thing. Attorneys want to know what evidence the grand jury was shown.
We are demanding that he release that transcript so we can see if there was any evidence. Did Breonna have any voice in that grand jury proceeding?
The FBI is conducting a separate investigation. One of the things they'll be looking into is whether or not police obtained that warrant using false information. Meanwhile, Hankinson is under investigation by an FBI-led task force for alleged sexual assault claims in another case unrelated to Breonna Taylor's. Jerika Duncan, CBS News, Louisville, Kentucky.
According to the Labor Department, a growing number of Americans are still filing for unemployment aid. Another 870,000 Americans filed for unemployment for the first time last week. That's about 4,000 more claims than were filed the week before. Another 630,000 workers applied for pandemic unemployment assistance, a program for self-employed and gig workers. 26 million Americans were receiving some sort of unemployment aid in the first week of September. Still to come on Red and Blue, breaking bad habits. Why one writer says the press still hasn't learned some important lessons about covering Donald Trump. Stay with us. You're streaming Red and Blue.
Weird.
App-based drivers like me are retirees, students, real estate agents, hairstylists, a lot of other independent contractors that just need something in between, and they need the flexibility to be able to do it on their schedule. 80% of drivers drive only a few hours a week, and by a 4-to-1 margin, drivers want to stay independent contractors. Prop 22 protects our ability to stay independent. Join me and
what does 4-to-1 margin mean?
Voting yes on Prop 22.
Actually.
And Doug.
You know, Limu, after all these years, it's the ones that got away that haunt me the most. Because you're not like everybody else. That's why Liberty Mutual customizes your car insurance. So you only pay for what you need. What? Oh, I said. Oh, this is my floor. Only pay for what you need.
Liberty, 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 liberty.
When pets were given the choice between paying more with cable TV or paying less for their favorite channels with Sling, the results? Well, there were no results. Because they're animals. They don't have a concept of money. You're not an animal. Make the smart choice and switch to Sling. Get the best of cable for the best price. Get started in 5 minutes at sling.com.
Welcome to Burrito Land, home to a one-of-a-kind tortilla wrap Angelino art
tortilla wrap.
Inspiration for El Pollo Loco's new LA Mex burritos.
El Pollo Loco.
Chicken tinga burrito from El Pollo
LAX burrito. Why would you want burrito from LAX? Oh yeah, spent a lot of time in LAX. Going to Phoenix, going from Phoenix, going to Houston, going from Houston. Yeah. So, and believe me, LAX burrito is not something that you want to ever eat.
Get help right away.
It's like I had to go to the Delta,
Tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection.
and like they Delta lunch and eat there for $29
Are you ready to do
a
more
piece,
with
like a
less
day
asthma?
or a couple of hours, rather than spending $20 on a freaking burrito at LAX.
We may be able to help.
Because they are expensive as hell.
Painful. Introducing Asper Cream with essential oil. Now calming lavender oil
Again,
is combined with
what
fast-acting light
are
for
essential
lasting relief.
oils? And
New
what
Asper
does
Cream with essential oil.
makes essential oil essential?
The 2016
Only to ask it on
election
TikTok.
underscored the vast disconnect between red and blue America. The call for a national dialogue
It's more
between
important
both
questions
sides
than
went
who will
largely
win
unheeded.
in elections.
A recent article in The Atlantic,
Or
citing
how
the media
Trump will
learned
cheat.
Nothing from 2016 calls upon the media to change its coverage of this year's presidential race.
Yeah.
Atlantic staff writer James Fallows wrote that piece, and he joins me now. Welcome to you, James. Thanks very much for being with us.
Thank
In your
you.
piece,
They
you
would not.
argued that- In your piece, you argue that President Trump's rallies and campaign events were given significantly more airtime than other candidates in 2016. Why do you think that happened?
Hey, come on.
I think the reason is they were simply more entertaining, especially when he was beginning his run in the summer of 2015 and then through 2016. There's a dilemma for all of us in this news business where we have to constantly balance over the weeks and over the years things that are purely interesting for people with things that we think are in the long-term national interest. That obviously things have to be interesting or people won't watch or read, but in the long run, the distinction between news and strict entertainment, whether it's a football game or a car chase or whatever,
Like,
is
really?
I think there's some larger value. And I think in retrospect, the 2015-16 coverage was driven by just the spectacle value of seeing Donald Trump as opposed to Mitt Romney, Marco Rubio, you name the candidate giving a speech.
Yeah. One candidate says that he could shoot someone on the Fifth Avenue, not lose any votes. Of course he will cover that. Then Mitt Romney.
The president's earlier pandemic briefings, he was often contradicted by the very people who were standing alongside him, his own health experts, when it came to statements that he made. So there was some fact-checking taking place in those times. But I want to ask you about something that Margaret Sullivan with the Washington Post wrote about. You referenced her in your piece, but she wrote in a recent column about something called the backfire effect. And she referenced these academics who said this, quote, direct factual contradictions can actually strengthen ideologically grounded factual beliefs. So this idea that for some folks who are actually presented with the truth, it can lead them to retreat further into their false beliefs. If that's the case, then what do you think, James, the role of the media should be in that kind of environment that has emerged?
You raise a really important and deep point.
Occam razor.
In the world,
that's what you need to use. Occam razor.
Before that, we assumed that politicians of any political view, they would spin things and exaggerate and push on the margins, as public figures always do, but they would they would be embarrassed if they were called out with an actual factual error, and they would try to avoid doing that. And I contend, I think there's ample proof that Donald Trump is not so constrained, nor many people around him. And, for example, his press secretary, Kayleigh McEnany, just flatly denying that he'd ever downplayed or played down the risk of the pandemic when a tape had just been aired by Bob Woodward with Donald Trump saying he always wanted to play it down. So I think it is the case that what might have been the reflex in previous times of simply saying a politician has claimed X.
No.
Actually, there's evidence that X is not true. It may be that in this current situation that just solidifies, as you say, people's pre-existing beliefs. So I think this is part of the calibration we're all trying to do day by day, and maybe the answer is to feature things that we as journalists have established to be true and not run things that we believe to be false along with the contradiction.
Yeah, in what instances, James, because you talk about this as well in your piece, but in what instances do you think that presenting both sides equally is actually a disservice to the public?
I think it's a disservice when you have one of the sides that just is false. And I think that probably an example that could be in many people's memory is during Barack Obama's time in office, where for 4 or 5 years there was a line of argument, again prominently featured by then business person Donald Trump, that Obama had been born in Kenya. Think of this for a moment. For him to be born in Kenya, his mother would have had to be in Kenya. And there was no evidence that she had traveled outside the U.S. at that time. So I think presenting, Barack Obama contends he was born in America, but critics say he was actually born in Kenya. I think that is something where just there are things that have gone through the exercise of trying to prove them, and those that are just allegations, and presenting them as if they're on a level playing field, on the whole, just it disserves the public.
All right. Well, it is a wildly different information landscape that exists now. James Fallows, we could talk to you all day about this. Thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thanks for your excellent questions. I appreciate it.
That does it for today. You can stream Red and Blue Monday to Thursday at 5 p.m. Eastern. More news after the break. You're streaming CBSN.
Here we go.
I'm Hector. I am
the
operations manager in San Diego, California. We were one of the first stations to pilot a fleet of electric vehicles.
Where you come from?
Deliver a package with zero emissions into the air.
Nope.
I feel really proud of the impact that has on the environment. We have 2 daughters, and I want to do everything I can to protect
come
the
on.
environment.
Really?
So hopefully they can have a great future.
That's just not fair. I'm sorry.
Here's to the doers.
Yeah, just
to
not
all
fair.
the people who realize they can do more with less asthma.
Thanks to Dupixent, the add-on treatment for specific types of moderate to severe asthma. Dupixent isn't for sudden breathing problems. It can improve lung function for better breathing in as little as 2 weeks and help prevent severe asthma attacks. It's not a steroid, but can help reduce or eliminate oral steroids. Dupixent can cause serious allergic reactions, including anaphylaxis. Get help right away if you have rash, shortness of breath, chest pain, tingling, or numbness in your limbs. Tell your doctor if you have a parasitic infection. And don't change or stop your asthma treatments, including steroids, without talking to your doctor. Are you ready to do more with less asthma? Talk to your asthma specialist about Dupixent. If your financial situation has changed, we may be able to help.
I see what's possible instead of what's here. Others see cracked concrete, broken backboards, run-down courts. I see a way to bring pride back to communities. Bright colors, a bold vision, and it can be somewhere that brings people together, for games, or hangouts, or whatever. A place that makes people proud, like this is my neighborhood. That's why I made Project Backboard and a site with GoDaddy. Make the world you want.
And now take your online presence to the next level with the new GoDaddy websites plus marketing.
I don't know.
We are the Thrivers, women with metastatic breast cancer. Our time for more time has come.
Our time for more
Living
time
longer
is
is
came.
possible and proven in postmenopausal
And we will
women
be
taking Kisqali plus fulvestrant. In a clinical trial,
taking
Kisqali plus fulvestrant
some weird
helped
stuff
women live longer
that
with
could kill us.
HR-positive, HER2-negative metastatic breast cancer, and it significantly delayed disease progression. Kisqali can cause lung problems or an abnormal heartbeat, which can lead to death. It can cause serious skin reactions, liver problems, and low white blood cell
I think,
counts
okay,
that result in
you
severe
could die from the medicine or from the disease. You choose.
symptoms, including breathing problems, cough, chest pain, a change in your heartbeat, dizziness, yellowing of the skin or eyes, dark urine, tiredness, loss of appetite, abdomen pain, bleeding, bruising, fever, chills, or other symptoms of an infection, a severe or worsening rash, or plan to become pregnant or breastfeeding. Avoid grapefruit during treatment. Ask your doctor about living longer with Kisqali.
You can watch CBSN 24/7.
I've got an amazing story to share with you.
I understand you have some breaking news.
How does it all play out?
It's quite an adventure here.
Hi everyone, I'm Lana Zach. Thank you so much for joining me. Protests have erupted nationwide after no police officers were charged directly with the death of Breonna Taylor. Kentucky's Attorney General announced the results of a grand jury investigation on Wednesday. One former officer was indicted on charges of wanton endangerment for shooting into neighboring homes at the time of the incident. You'll recall Taylor was shot and killed by police in her own home. That was more than 6 months ago. The officers entered in connection to a drug investigation. While they had a no-knock warrant, the state's attorney general says they did announce themselves. Wednesday's grand jury announcement, though, sparked outrage. Demonstrations remained mostly peaceful and spanned from coast to coast. Hundreds of people filled the streets in San Diego, Chicago, Colorado, and Atlanta. And here was the scene in New York City on Wednesday.
Oh, that's original discovery. Nice. Come on! Damn it! No. Huh?
We come in peace. That's why we're here. Isn't that the whole idea of Starfleet?
Hey,
I taught you that.
You don't trust me, Captain?
I trust you with my life, Commander Burnham, but it doesn't change the fact that you're lost. Very lost.
Technically, we would be lost.
How long until that storm comes crashing down on us?
I estimate 1 hour, 17 minutes, 22 seconds. The map says the well's this way, Captain. This drought's gonna last 89 years. The Crepusculans are facing extinction as a species. See those X-Acts? Those are their offspring.
They survived here for over 1,000 years, Michael.
Right. And if we don't do something now, they won't live another 1,000 hours. The ambient radiation from a nearby meteor drilling accident dried out their water table. If we can get in and out without making contact, we can steer clear of General Order 1.
Make them contact.
There is the well.
Ooh.
I stand corrected.
Will you make contact? Will you make contact with me?
Tell me what I need to break through this bedrock.
0.7 second fuel burst. At level setting 13.5.
Ow.
Georgia to Senjo. 2 to transport.
Uh-oh.
The storm is moving faster than I thought. The ship won't be able to pick up our signatures. Unless we can contact Lieutenant Saru, we could be trapped here until it's over.
Let's take a walk. Follow my footsteps, Michael. Even lines.
Why? Captain, where are we going?
It's your turn to trust me, number one.
But now we're really lost. We're far too small to be seen with the naked eye. And you can't set a course without a star. Is it wise to be heading away from the village?
It's hard to imagine. You've served under me for 7 years. I think it's time that we talked about you having your own command.
I'm grateful, Captain. Though, I would be significantly more so if I thought we had any chance of ever returning to the ship.
Just keep walking, Michael. What will you do if you were stuck here for 89 years?
A likely scenario. Unless you die here in the desert.
But say you live.
As a xenoanthropologist, I could reveal myself to the natives, learn their culture, try to fit in. Possible. And you, Captain? What will you do if we're trapped here for 89 years?
That's easy. I'd escape.
These are our footprints. You've walked us in a circle.
Nope.
Exactly a circle.
Not exactly a circle. The Starfleet symbol. That Discovery wouldn't be able to see anyhow. So, that's besides the point, I think.
How did they find us?
Yeah, good question. Okay. Huh. I don't know. I don't know. To sleep, maybe. Come on. Come on, people. Hey, come on. Dum dum.
This weekend at Kohl's, take an extra 15% off. Find great deals on tops for her. Save big on Levi's denim. And get 20 to 40% off Food Network. Plus, take $10 off your style event purchase. Plus, get Kohl's Cash. Plus, free store pickup. Find a little more this fall. Kohl's.
It's a familiar story. Allergies ruining your sleep and next day too. Taking Zysol at night relieves allergies while you sleep, so you wake refreshed.
Come on.
Plus, it works faster than Claritin, and on first dose provides the same relief for Zyrtec
Really?
at nearly half the size. Be wise all. Take Zysol at night.
Come on, people.
Yeah, that's half the fun of a new house. Seeing what people left behind in the attic.
Well, saving on homeowners insurance with Geico's help is pretty fun too.
Tiny dancer.
They left a ton of stuff up there.
Well, enjoy your house.
No, thank you.
Geico could help you save on homeowners and renters insurance.
Now Simparica Trio simplifies protection. Ticks it, please. See ya.
Heartworm disease? No way.
Simparica Trio is the first chewable that delivers all this protection. And Simparica Trio is demonstrated safe for puppies.
Hey.
It's simple. Go with Simparica Trio.
It's not
This drug
simple.
class has been associated with neurologic adverse reactions, including seizures. Use with caution in dogs with a history of these disorders. Protect him with all your heart. Simparica Trio.
You know that look? That life of the party look. Walk it off look. 1 more mile look. Reply all look. Own your look with...
Nope. Still playing. Okay, I have another 2 hours until I have to take my meds, and then I could go to sleep. Ow. Ow. Really? What? What the what? What? Like, are you serious? Nej. Nope. And nope. Two more. 137. They don't want to see me go. I think we're in 135 or 137. Here.